Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. I have been married for 2 years now. As soon as we got married, we moved to my house, which I inherited from my dad. This was a huge house that had plenty of rooms and space for a large family. I belonged to a small family, as I was the only child, so I was never used to many people living around or to live in a crowded house. My husband is very attached to his family and never lived away from them. So it was a bit difficult for him to adjust to a huge house with not many people around. We had already talked about it before marriage, that I was not going to move in with my in-laws and that my husband will have to move into my house. Everything was sorted beforehand, so it was quite easy to move here. Being very attached to his family, my husband would stay connected with them through a voice call or video call for the whole day. I tried to understand that, of course, it was his family and he was missing them, so it will take time while he gets comfortable with the new lifestyle. But this call's routine did not change. I have 3 brother-in-laws and 2 sister-in-laws, which means my husband has a huge family. All of them would take turns to talk to my husband, and that took so much time and disturbed our communication. They were indirectly disturbing our married life, as we did not get enough time for ourselves after we returned from work. But they were so stubborn and could not leave us alone. This started pinching me, and I don't know when I developed a grudge towards them. I decided to discuss this with my husband, but could not figure out how to start, as I did not think he would take anything against his family. I put my point in front of my husband and asked him to request his family to leave some time for us so we can just focus on our married life and future. I told him that I understood that he missed his family, but cannot give them all his time and ignore our own life. As I expected, my husband lost his temper and said that I was a terrible and mean person who could not stand any person other than myself. He asked, was that not enough that I took him away from his family? And now, I don't even want him to stay connected to them? I tried to calm him down and said that I did not mean that. I was just asking for some privacy and more time for us together. Plus, I told him that I did not steal him. It was decided that he would move in with me, and he agreed to do it too. So, it was not me who stole him away from his family, but he who left them and came here. I was pissed at his reaction and stopped talking to him. After a few days of the silent treatment, my husband approached me and tried to make up for that day. He said that he'd never lived without them and was very sensitive in their case, but will talk to them and make sure that he balances things out. I was glad that he at least tried to readily mend things. He talked to his parents, and they did not mind, and assured him that they would take care. A few days passed by, and one day, he was talking to his parents. My husband said that he would love if they shifted here. I looked at him in surprise and waited for the call to end. As I asked what he was talking about, he said that his parents wanted to move in with us, as they understood that I could not adjust without them, and that they were doing it just for my husband's sake. I was so shocked I could not believe my ears. He further explained that the house would seem less empty, and I will get a chance to experience what it is like to live in a big family. I told him that it was impossible, and I would not give up on my privacy, so he better call them and refuse. He got enraged and said that I never wanted to see his family and hated them for no reason. I knew that I had to go through this now. This is so unfair. It is my house, my life, and my marriage that is just being exploited. As I told you guys that my in-laws were moving in with us, it is worse than I had imagined it to be. These people have no education on privacy and roam around like they own the place. My mother-in-law has hijacked the kitchen and does not let the cook work peacefully. I have argued several times with her, but she says that the cook is not up to the mark, and that is why his son, my husband, looks weak. My brother-in-law's kids are the wildest human beings. They have already crashed 2 of the imported flower vases, which were gifts from my dad. I cried and complained, but my husband said that they were just kids, and all kids are like that. My sister-in-laws invite their friends over and throw tea parties, sleepovers, and movie nights. My father-in-law is always after the garden. This is a nightmare, guys. These people are just uncontrollable and unstoppable and cannot be argued with. If I try to say anything or object, they involve my husband, and things get worse. I told my husband that they had to leave the house, or I will have to act like I do not want to. My husband calls me mean and selfish, and told me that I'd better marry an orphan, so I never had to deal with his family. The maids and servants are exhausted. They cannot carry on their work properly, as everyone here enjoys interfering. As my in-laws have already hijacked the house, I tried to find peace within the chaos, but I feel like they are here to test my patience and see my limits. One fine day, while having tea in the garden, the whole family was around the table when my father-in-law said that if I was the perfect daughter-in-law, I would have gifted this house to them. I was shocked, but replied that if that is what it takes to be a perfect daughter-in-law, let me be imperfect. My husband stared at me, but I brushed it off. My father-in-law went on to say that as I was the only child of my parents, I did not need this much property to spend my life, and I could at least gift this house to my in-laws, as they are now my only family. He laughed while saying that I was a millionaire, and where did I think I could take all this wealth? So it was better that I at least gifted this house to them. I argued back, saying that they already have taken over the house. What else do they want? My father-in-law said that living in a house and owning a house are 2 different things. I replied, what about going outside, working hard, and building your own house? This made my husband furious, and he asked me to shut up. I snapped at him and said, let me speak, because I was done with it. I stood up and told them that they have already enjoyed more than they deserve, and if they cannot live peacefully like decent human beings, they can leave anytime they want to. After that face-to-face encounter, my in-laws created a whole new drama. All of them cried and told my husband that they were never treated like that before. My husband is not talking to me, and I do not want to deal with that kid anymore. This man cannot utter even a word in front of them, no matter what they keep on saying. This is it. If he wants to leave with them, he may just go. My mother-in-law cried and yelled so many times since then, and says that I hated her since day 1. I have asked them to leave as soon as possible and to go back to their own house. They create drama now and then, but do not plan to leave. I do not know what other side of mine they want to see. My husband has clearly announced that he will not stay in this house if there is no space for his family. I have told him that he can do whatever suits him and may leave with his family. But I think his family is reluctant and wants me to reconsider, but I am wholly done. I have decided that I will give them a deadline and then throw their things out, and then kick them out of the house. I cannot act dumb anymore and let them keep up with this. I was so nice and well-behaved at the start, but they never deserved it, and now they have to see how evil I am. I felt like a bank that was constantly being exploited. My father earned that house with his hard work. We've put all our efforts into this house, and they just want to cash it. Such a greedy and dumb family. The whole family is the a-hole, and every single one of them sucks here. If you guys wanted to keep your son with you forever, you could simply not let him marry. Also, if the husband was so attached to his family, he should have not married and agreed to move in with you. He is so dumb that he cannot even speak for himself or his wife, and keeps on agreeing on the shittiest things. How can he allow his family in his wife's house too, without asking her or even informing her? Then, his family comes and hijacks the house as if they have never seen one and are coming straight from the jungle. They enjoy it much more than they ever deserved. If they were a bit considerate, they would have been thankful and moved by the time you pushed them, but they chose to push you off your limits and see what you were capable of. Even now, they can respectfully leave the house and go back before you threw them out. Not the a-hole, but why do you seem like a spoiled brat who cannot see anyone else but yourself? From the very start, you're just crying for your privacy, your time, your married life, and act like you care for your husband. Why could you not see how attached your husband was to his family before they got married? If you had such big problems with the family, you could simply find someone else to marry. I know it was your property and you were capable of handling it the way you wanted to, but I would never build a grudge for someone who depended on me. You were the one who was rich and blessed but could not share those things with others. You could simply change the topic of gifting that house and to stop making a big drama out of it. In this way, you could have saved your married life as well as your property and live peacefully. You could also slowly convince your husband to let your family go back to their house, but you chose war and risked relationships to save your property.
Here's the next story.
I, 27F, and my husband, 23M, got married 2 years ago. I generally get along with his family pretty well, and he tries to get along with my family. My family is not super close. We were upper class. My siblings are 10 years plus older than me, and my parents raised me by handing me a credit card and letting me loose. My parents divorced when I was in high school, and they got better after that, and we actually formed a relationship. I love my parents, but it is like I am an only child with siblings. I have no attachment to my siblings at all. We get together every Christmas, and maybe Thanksgiving. That's the most I see of my family. My husband's family is the exact opposite. They are super close. He was raised where his family got together for everything. Extended family, grandparents, great aunts and uncles, all of the kids, and so on. Every minor holiday, every birthday, everything. It was a big shock going in. It took about a year of dating before I got comfortable around his family. One of his cousins said I came off stuck up because I wore nice clothes and didn't talk much. But once I got comfortable, I opened up and joined conversations, and I blended in fairly well. My husband and I have had trouble with pregnancy. We have had one ectopic pregnancy that made me lose a fallopian tube, and we have had 5 miscarriages all in the last 3 years. One was a second trimester miscarriage, so we had already announced and had to explain to everyone we lost the baby. We have been pretty open with our struggles. His extended family constantly asks if we're going to try again or when we are going to have kids. And I always politely say we're trying, but I'm sick of it. I've talked to my mother-in-law and husband, both of whom are great, and they said they would talk to them and get them to stop. Here's where I might be the a-hole. At family dinner last week, I was sitting around with all of his aunts and female cousins, and they were just gossiping and chatting. When his great aunt looked at me and asked when we plan on adding more babies to the family, I looked at her dead in the eye and said, when my uterus decides to stop ejecting them prematurely. She looked at me stunned, and I stood up and walked out of the room. I had a few people come up to me and tell me I was rude and that was uncalled for. She's older, like 60-something, and she just doesn't know any better. I don't think what I said was wrong and don't want to apologize. I mean, I could have worded it better, but if they want to get into business that is personal, then why not give them the whole truth? So, should I apologize? Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. 60-something means birth control and the feminist movement and all the other social developments that have opened the door for it to be okay for women to do other things with their lives than be moms have been around at least since she was a teenager. She was being rude and nosy and presumptive, and she shouldn't have pushed if she wasn't prepared for a straight answer. Not the a-hole. If the family is close, then she should know your struggle and miscarriages. Being older is no excuse, and they should back you up. I think when you left the room, any decent human would realize they hurt you. I'm sorry for all your losses. I would never apologize. And maybe your hubby can remind them that all of your lost babies are children to you, and that question hurts very deeply.
Here's the next story.
My F20, mother-in-law, F63, can be very overdramatic when I'm involved in certain things. She's a bit of a control freak about everything regarding my partner, M21. My partner is a bit naive when it comes to the real world, as she has sheltered him for most of it. He moved out last year for school, and she has been trying to ruin his life over the phone. But he has asked chiefly for advice from me, since she doesn't offer the best advice. Last year, he lost his grandmother to Alzheimer's. She left behind a cat that we took in and affectionately named Noodle. We have had her for almost a year now. Now for the actual story. My partner and I went on vacation for spring break. Since none of our friends could look after her, we left Noodle by herself for a few days. She had bird videos, more than enough food, and more than enough water. She has been left alone for a lot longer by my partner's parents and aunt, who she has lived with before. So, the day that we were supposed to come home from our trip, we had our car broken. We had our car broken into, and they stole my partner's camera, and my house and car keys, as well as my ID. We then spent the day trying to find our belongings, and the entire time, his mom, my mother-in-law, was calling us and complaining about us leaving the cat. When we told her about the break-in and theft, neither of his parents seemed to care, that we felt as violated as we did. All they cared about was us going back to our cat. Finally, as we were giving up our search, she got another call from his mom. She was angry and started calling us cruel to leave Noodles for 3 days. We got mad and asked her why she cared more about a cat who doesn't even really care that we are gone than her kid, who had his property stolen, and their daughter-in-law, who had her house and car keys stolen. She hung up on us after saying she was going to come to get the cat. I texted her and said that if I got home and my cat was gone, I'm going to call the cops. I didn't get a reply. Well, we got home, and lo and behold, our cat is gone, as well as her food bowl and all the things we bought her. I called my mother-in-law and asked if she had Noodle. I didn't even need an answer from her, as I could hear my cat yowling. I told her that if she didn't bring her back, I would call the cops. She hung up on me. Well, I called the cops. They went to her house and got my cat back, as well as charged her with theft. I'm getting messages from his family saying I took it too far and that I should have just gone and gotten the cat. But I know this woman. She would have called the cops on me if I had gone to her house. But the reason I may be the a-hole is that she might face jail time if I press charges, and she suffers from mental illness. Everyone sucks here. You say you leave your cat alone for longer than 3 days with no one to watch her, when you could just hire a professional or bring her to a cat boarding facility where she will be cared for. Leaving an animal alone with no one to check up or care for is just negligent. It would be one thing if someone came by once a day, but you just say Noodle is left alone. Your mother-in-law should not have stolen the cat, but it's not up to you to police her feelings either. She's allowed to care about the welfare of a sentient animal over stolen, non-sentient stuff. Change your locks and keys so your mother-in-law can't just come into your house, but also take better care of your cat. Hire a professional pet sitter or someone to at least check up on Noodle once a day, rather than just leaving her alone for days on end, not the a-hole. Lawfully speaking, the cat is your property, so what she did was enter your home without permission, and she stole your cat. She is in the wrong, and if you would make a complaint against her, she would be prosecuted. That aside, emotionally, pets are not property. But you are in the wrong to think a cat can be alone for 3 days, especially if she is a single cat. Cats become extremely stressed if there is no one around. While we don't see it when we're coming home, they still feel it. I have a pet cam for 2 of my cats, and you see stress in their behavior when I'm away for a night. We misjudge cats' behavior a lot, but they are social animals.